91.3 WVKR, independent radio, Poughkeepsie, New York. It's 4 o'clock on a Wednesday, which means you are tuned into LocalMotion here on 91.3. If it's your first time tuning in, this show is all about music of the Hudson Valley, musicians that live here, those coming to record in our area recording studios, as well as those coming to play in our beautiful area venues. Show number 267 for me on these airwaves today. Thanks everybody for tuning in, whether it's online at WVKR.org, on the dial at 91.3, or tune in, however it is you're here. Appreciate you being here. I'm thrilled to have today's guest calling me in a few minutes. We'll be talking today with Danny Blume. Lots and lots to talk about. He's a very interesting person and has worked with amazing people and owns Hidden Quarry Studio in Woodstock, New York. He's a recording engineer, mixer, producer. And I was lucky enough to get some great music from him, which we'll be talking about in greater detail. So some of the music, I think most of it's new. Some of it hasn't been heard before. So we're going to start this one out with a person he's worked with, musician Ali Deneen, and let's take a listen to some of Danny's work, and then we'll get him on the line. 91.3.
Light ran down my limbs, stars in the sea. You turned to walk away, and my heart was broken open for all to see.
91.3 WVKR Independent Radio, Poughkeepsie, New York. Allie Deneen. We will talk much more about that right now with Mr. Danny Blume. Let me get him on. Danny?
Yes.
Hi. Wonderful. You're here. Great.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks for being here today. I always appreciate the time. And it's been a while since you and I had a time to talk here on air, so really looking forward to it. And I just would like to give a brief introduction, if I may, to the listeners that are tuning in by saying that Grammy and Juno award-winning music producer, mixer, engineer, and musician Danny Blume has performed and recorded with countless artists, including Iggy Pop, The Lounge Lizards, Medeski Martin and Wood, Jewel, Lisa Loeb, King Creole and the Coconuts, just to name a few. He is the owner of Hidden Quarry Studio in Woodstock, New York. And with that, a wholehearted welcome to LocalMotion, Danny Blume.
Well, hello. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, and thank you for sending me all this great music. When I was finishing up the details of producing the show, I was listening to all of it and really impressed. And I do mean by each and every track that you sent me. So some really unique things and just awesome. So, yeah. So I'd like to go back just for a very short time, because in order for us to understand where you are now, we have to go back just a little bit with your musical beginnings, which, if I understand correctly, was focused in like bluegrass and acoustic and folk music. Yes?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and my parents were deep into the bluegrass scene. And they took me and my younger brothers to a million bluegrass festivals, and so if for anyone who might be into that stuff, I saw them all.
Sounds like a fun way to grow up, quite honestly.
It was, and it's also like, as far as being introduced to music, as soon as I could strum a few chords on the guitar, I could sit in a circle with all of them and play, which is very satisfying for a little kid, like 8 years old or something.
Because you want to be part of the hang, the grown-up hang. So
because that was every night at our house. Many people playing music until 2 or 3 in the morning.
Wow, really fun. And then, from what I read, at the age of 8, you heard the Beatles and picked up the guitar, and that was that.
Yes, I was definitely one of those people for whom the Beatles blew their mind. And I always loved music. I was very into lots of different stuff when I was a little kid. But it was, without question, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band that made me go, okay, this is it for me for the rest of my life. Nothing else matters.
Really? Wow. That's so cool. Now, you're too young to have been here when they premiered on Ed Sullivan, because I know some people I talk to watch them, the premiere of when they came into the Ed Sullivan Theater and boom, they were on the show. You did not see that, I don't think, did you?
No, I missed that.
Yeah.
Not by much.
I'm in the same boat as you. I missed it by just a hair, a few years earlier. It would have been a different story, but exactly the same thing. So guitar's always been your instrument, or I know you grew up with the banjo and the fiddle and all of this other stuff, but it was really, I tried playing fiddle when I was younger. It was really hard. But it was the guitar that, once again, because of the Beatles, of course it was going to be guitar.
Right.
And I wanted electric guitar. Like, it wasn't really all about my parents' music. I've grown. I never didn't like it, but that's not what I wanted to do. That's my parents' music.
Yeah.
So for me, it was more about rock. I heard, all of the classics from starting from the Beatles and the Stones and Hendrix and Led Zeppelin and blah. And then I heard Chuck Berry, and then I heard James Brown, and then I got into jazz. I mean, it's like music is it's so rich and varied, and there's never been a genre that I have an allegiance to. And sometimes people ask me what kind of music do I like, or what kind of music do I produce, and I give a really snotty answer, but it's actually the truth. It's actually the truth, and that answer is, I like music that has like heart and soul and makes me feel something. And that is unrelated to the genre.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That could be anything. That could be opera. That could be anything. A pop.
Well, it can't be opera. No, that I draw the line.
You draw the line. Okay. Yep. But it does make some people
I'm teasing, sort of.
Sort of, yeah. But there's emotion in that, in opera. I mean, I'm not a huge fan, but it is to some. It's what people draw.
No, I like to feel something, and that's what matters to me, not what genre.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So fast forward, like in high school, were you in music in school, or did you play in bands while you were in high school? What were you?
Oh yeah. Always. Always.
Give me some of the names of the bands that you were in when you were that young.
Well, I don't remember.
Because it's so much fun.
Yeah,
I
really don't. I literally don't remember.
Oh, that's so cute. You might later.
I was in a little band, maybe when I was 10 years old, that we only played Beatles songs, and we got on the roof of my neighbor's garage, and tried to mimic, their rooftop show.
I love it. I love it.
But I don't remember what we were called. And there were bands in high school. I don't have no memory of
no
any
memory.
Of that.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, I vague memory. But the first band, there's a band in the Boston area where I was living called City Edition. And that was like a big funk, Tower of Power style funk band with horns and tons of people, and that was the first band name that I can say that I really remember.
Wow, very cool. Very
but
cool.
nobody else would remember it.
No, I'm sure. I'm sure. Some people do.
A dozen other people.
Yeah, right. And then others are just like, so after high school, you determined like music, this is what I want to do. There's nothing else. And I'm going to do this. Is that when you went to New York or what happened? What got you?
No. Well, I determined that that's what I wanted to do well before high school because
you heard the Beatles.
Yeah, and so high school was just something that I had to get through, and in fact I didn't get through. I quit high school because I wanted to pursue music full time. So now, for all of you kids out there listening to this, don't take me as an example. Don't do. Stay in school.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now that I've gotten that over with, so I actually moved back to Ohio. I'll skip through some of this because it can go very long. But I moved back to Ohio after I quit school because I thought I would start doing music out there. But then I realized that I really needed to be in a city. So I came back to Boston because that's where I had a free place to sleep. And that went much better. So I was just playing professionally in Boston, various different bands, and a lot of it was a very different scene at the time. You could play, you could make a living playing in bars, which I did. And I played in a country band. I played in the funk band City Edition. I played in other rock bands. I played in a band based in Rhode Island. And everybody would be writing their own music and developing their own sound, but mixing those songs in with a bunch of covers in whatever style that they were doing. And then you'd play in a bar and you'd play 4 or 5 sets a night, and you would get paid.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I'm saying that like this was very common, but I realized that to a musician, just entering the scene nowadays, this sounds like unimaginable.
Yeah, quite foreign. Yeah. Yeah. Is that what you said?
And so that's what, I made a living doing that, and other odd jobs, but yeah, I did that for a long time.
And
then moving to New York was kind of like the big move, because I got an opportunity to get a very cheap apartment in New York, and so I basically just dropped everything and went there, because I figured, I would certainly move to New York, and very quickly I would be a huge, massively successful rock star, and that would be that.
Yeah, and you were.
I haven't given up that dream yet.
Haven't. But it was a good move for you to go to New York. Obviously, it opened up.
It was incredible.
Yeah,
that was incredible.
Yeah, it opened up a lot for you, and you got
it. It was everything. Like, I would go so far as to say that was the thing that was absolutely 100% critical.
Yeah, the light bulb moment there. That just boom.
Yeah, and that's where I hooked up with Kid Creole and the Coconuts, who is kind of an obscure band.
Very eclectic. I looked them up on YouTube because honestly, I wasn't that familiar with them. Wow. Were you in a costume and dancing around too?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Man. Oh, Danny,
suits,
I would pay
dancers.
you to post pictures of that.
I have some, but it was kind of a beautiful story, because I was a huge fan of this band, but I knew nothing about them. There was no internet at the time. This was in the very late 80s, very into the 80s, and so I just thought they were some bizarre art band that was amazing, and I loved them. And what I did is I made a tape of my own music. I went into a studio, recorded came out with a cassette tape of my music, and there was an address on the back of this record. It didn't say anything about it. It was just an address with no information, and I mailed this cassette tape to that address.
Wow.
And said, I need to be in your band.
Wow. And you obviously got a response.
The guy called me, man. He called me.
Amazing.
He left a message on my phone machine, and I thought it was a joke, because I had a buddy of mine who, also an incredible musician, and a guy who just won a Grammy, actually, just a few days ago.
And who would that be?
His name's Sebastian Steinberg. He was a bass player and
nice.
And friend of mine from high school. Actually, we played together a lot. But anyway, he would constantly leave voice messages on my phone machine that were goofs, funny messages. He'd say things like, "Hey, this is Miles. Call me," stuff like that. And so I thought that was him, messing with me, and I ignored it.
Right.
So, but then I discovered that it wasn't actually him; it was actually real. And meanwhile, I was struggling. Like I didn't have money to buy, an Apple. It was like
right.
in New York City. I couldn't meet anyone. I didn't have a gig. I was like waiting in line at 1 a.m. to play in horrible blues jams in the West Village, just in the hopes of meeting someone.
Yeah.
Like it was a tough time.
Yeah.
But
a tough time and a learning time, though. And then these guys call you, and hello, you spent 10 years with them.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that's right. So I finally did get in touch with them, and it did work out. He hired me. We went on tour. So suddenly I was playing in stadiums, because I didn't realize that these people were huge stars overseas. They were an obscure band in America, but they were huge stars in Europe, like giant festivals, giant. Big,
I saw the audiences.
3 tour buses and stuff.
I saw the audiences and packed, like you say, stadiums. And I saw the videos I saw were mostly from Europe and Spain.
They were all from Europe. Yeah. No one knew in the United States. This Kid Creole and the Coconuts was like no one had heard of them except we were real hip and cool in L.A., New York, and Miami.
Mm-hmm.
That was about it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Nowhere else. Like if we went anywhere else in the States, we would be playing in a small club.
Right. Yeah. And that, of course, opened up quite a few doors for you. Talk to me when recording started for you. Like, when was your first recording session that you took part in just for playing?
Well, I would say that from the very beginning, I was always really, really fascinated by recording. I was one of those people who would read all of the fine print on every record and remember, who played the rhythm guitar on this, that kind of thing, who was the producer, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And then whenever I could get in a recording studio, which was as much as I possibly could, I would sit in the control room and watch everything the engineer did. Mm-hmm. So I was always really into it, but I had no formal training. The way that I really got into it was after I'd been touring for a long time. I'd say, maybe I'd been making a living touring and playing with various, like, tons of different bands for, I don't know, 15 years plus, more maybe, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 20 years maybe, 15. I don't know. I'm not good with that. But I had a band of my own, rock band in the city, that caught the attention of this guy who's an engineer, producer, and he wanted to record us. And him and I hit it off quite well, and we started doing electronic music together, which I was also very into, like, electronic music, mm-hmm. Particularly in the 90s. Anyway, he was a guy named Christian Castagno. He was very good engineer, very technical. I was very connected with a lot of musicians in New York City because I'd just been doing it for forever. I had good relationships with a lot of people. And the two of us decided to start a recording studio, and that was really my education about engineering and recording. Mm-hmm. Really started then, even though I'd been in studios as a musician a lot, watching. This was my real schooling at, like, hands-on. Okay, it's time for me to engineer. Right, I was ready at that time to stop touring so much and relying on playing the guitar on stage to make a living and really focus on the studio. That's when it really started. Mm-hmm,
mm-hmm. And during this time frame, also this electronic group, because I think I saw this, Liminal.
Liminal, yeah.
I think you guys years ago played at BSP in Kingston or something? I, for some reason, remember seeing you.
We did, and so Liminal is what I would call an ongoing collective project that is all about experimental electronic music live. Mm-hmm. Generally not computer generated, although there's no real rule against computers, but it's really mostly about almost like anti-music, not anti, but like trying to break every kind of standard rule of playing in bands. Mm-hmm. Like if I'm playing guitar in Liminal, there's going to be a lot of effects, and the effects are going to have more to do with what I play than my versatility. I might even detune it or something so that I don't really know what I'm doing, because I don't want to, I want to get away from every pattern, and mental process that I'm used to. Uh-huh. So that's the concept of Liminal. I always try to work with people who are very into the electronics aspect of it, right, to break it away from the kind of thing I usually do. Yeah.
I remember seeing you guys, and it was just so interesting and so diverse and eclectic and all of these things, and it was like I really liked it. I hope you guys out there
I'm
again.
so glad you liked it.
I
because,
really
boy,
did.
we could clear a room.
Well, I hope that you like, when we can go out and really enjoy music again, that comes to fruition for you, because that's really different. It's unique, and nothing like we have here in the area. So I'm all for you guys getting out there, and just a show or two here and there would be kind of really cool to see. So anyway,
I would love that.
Food
and
for thought.
I will. I appreciate your enthusiasm for it.
Yeah. So, of course, now you're in Woodstock, New York, and the recording studio started in Brooklyn, New York. Tell me about finding Woodstock and now coming up here and making this your home.
Yeah, well, so I've always really wanted to live in the country, like my whole life, but I was more compelled to do music, and I felt like the city was the place for that, which was true.
Yeah.
And so I'd been in New York City for many years, and as you said, I'd started this studio in Brooklyn, and we made a ton of great records, and all kinds of good stuff happened.
Like with who?
But,
Name some of the people that you recorded.
See, as soon as you asked me this, of course, I'd draw an immediate blank.
Medeski, Martin, and Wood came down there?
Well, I've done a lot of work for them, but I don't think they ever recorded there. They all recorded there separately, but not
together.
Not an MMW record there.
Right.
I'm going to pass on that question.
Okay. Yeah.
Because
Please.
Because there's too many people too many records we made, and I'm going to forget them. But a lot of really good stuff. But it was very, very difficult, very punishing financially to have a studio, and then after a certain amount of time, we lost our lease, and the rent went crazy, because that's what happens in Brooklyn, and we couldn't afford to stay, and we had to get out fast, and it was really, really, really hard. In the meantime, my wife and I had bought a house upstate. That's a whole other story I won't even go into, but stemming from a tenant dispute in the city that lasted years, and at the end of it, we got a settlement, and then we thought, well, this is our chance. It's our big chance we're going to buy something. So we did that.
Oh, nice.
And I had been losing one apartment after another, and I just decided, let's get out of here. We got a house. Let's go up there, and I'll figure it out and work in the house. So I did.
Now, did you know people up here already?
A handful, yeah, a handful. But I have to say there weren't as many people up here at that time. I mean, there were quite a few. There's always been a lot of great musicians up here. Something that I love about the area. But it's exploded in the last few years. But my clientele wasn't local. It was all contacts I'd made from the city. And I guess I'd been there doing the studio in Brooklyn long enough, and my reputation was what it was, and people came to me. It was all right. And but I had lost all my gear. Like when we lost the studio, I had to sell everything, So I really had to build it up from scratch.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot.
So I did. I worked in the house. I worked in my house and had a studio set up in the house for probably 10 years. And then my wife, who's a genius.
I hope she's listening to that.
She's probably not. She's probably working, but she was. She was had the vision was to sell that house and buy a smaller house and build a studio.
Nice.
I think part of her motivation was to get the darn studio out of her house.
Yeah. Of course she's a genius,
It's very reasonable.
Yeah.
Very reasonable request. And it appealed to me a lot because I've always wanted to build a studio. I build things. I'm also a kind of a mediocre carpenter.
Yeah.
And so I can do a lot of the building. And so anyway, I built this studio that I'm currently in to be exactly what I wanted, the way I want to work. And that's what I'm doing. And it's a pretty nice thing.
It's like a dream come true. And of course, the name of the studio, Hidden Quarry.
The Hidden Quarry, yes.
Yes.
Although if you look up the Hidden Quarry, you won't find much because it's
hidden.
It's hidden. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
If you look for me, you'll find.
DannyBlume.com is the way to go. But otherwise it's hard to find it. Otherwise, I loved the website of yours, a really beautiful website, and I love the way that you can do 3D and you can really get a really good feel of what your studio looks like.
I'm gonna give a little plug here. My friend Chase Pearson. And his partner Owen have this company that does 3D modeling, and they're the ones that did that, and that's been super cool because people can see exactly what the space is that they're going to come into,
and even measurements. I was like, "What? This is so great!" Like how far things are away from each other, how big things are. It's just, I mean, it was very impressive.
Yeah, that's been real helpful for me too, because like if someone wants to make a record, well, of course, if you're coming there, mostly people are coming there to work with me. Mm-hmm. Once in a while, someone will want to just rent the space, and I can have a time off, and they can just use the space, which is fine. But mostly, they want to work with
you,
with me, and so that it's not like they're studio shopping,
mm-hmm.
but you're also studio shopping because you want to see, well, can my whole band fit there?
Mm-hmm.
How will we lay it out? What's it going to be like? You can see all the instruments. You can really get a sense of what you are jumping into.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's
vibe of the place.
Such a great outside space too, to take a break and take on the beautiful mountains that you're surrounded by, and just just gorgeous. And you are, of course, right outside of Woodstock, right? If anybody's interested in booking some studio time, that's where you are, out in Bearsville. Now, tell me about a process of recording. So somebody contacts you, and I guess sometimes record companies contact you, or usually you get a call from the artist or a manager, or how does that work?
Well, okay, in my case, the vast majority of my clients are the artist. Mm-hmm. Now, sometimes they have a record deal, and often they don't. In the olden days, like when I was in Brooklyn, we would work for record labels more often. But now it's for me, and I think for a lot of producers, a lot of people in my situation, it's almost exclusively artist funded. Mm-hmm. That's just kind of the way the business has gone. If you're a bigger star, already established star as opposed to a rising star, so to speak, you may have a record label and a manager, and it'll go through those channels. So I'd say that like all of the music that I sent you, 100% of that was all between me and the artist in terms of all the creative decisions, all that stuff. If you have a record label, they're often involved in that process as well. So some of these artists do have deals, some of them don't, some of them hopefully will, or maybe hopefully won't,
right,
because they control their own destiny, and that's the way it is nowadays. So we're very much in the wild, wild west when it comes to indie music. Mm-hmm. And by indie, I mean it in the strict definition of independent, not attached to a record label.
Right.
There's a lot of opportunity for indie music now in ways that were harder in the past.
And I'm guessing maybe for you, wouldn't it be easier for you just to deal with an artist, I would guess, right? Creatively and
Yes and no. Okay, so if you have a record label, they are the large corporate entity behind the scenes. Their representative would be what's called the A&R person, who is much more hands-on with the band. Now, if you have a really good A&R person, then they're going to be very valuable during the whole process. If you have a real bummer of an A&R person, it's going to be a nightmare.
right,
So it's a mixed bag.
right,
But it's kind of irrelevant to me at the moment because I haven't been paid by a record label directly in quite a while. It's always the artist. Even if they have a label, they're making their record, they're in charge. So I am working for the artist and
directly.
with the artist. Another very, very important dynamic shift with all this is like, if there's a record label and I'm producing, then I work for the record label.
Right.
And if the record label doesn't like the artist's vision, I'm somehow beholden to the label.
Right.
That's a terrible position to be in because I care about the music, I care about the artist.
Right. Right.
So in terms of the nuts and bolts process of making a record from start to finish, I vastly prefer working for the artist.
I would
because
imagine.
we develop a good working relationship. We have like a musical vision that we share, and I'm a facilitator. I'm basically helping them achieve their vision.
Right. Right.
And I don't have a label to answer to. So I love that. I absolutely love it, and I absolutely prefer it.
Yeah, I would
what
imagine.
What that means from a bigger business perspective, I don't know.
Now, I see like a lot of people just put out singles now. They don't even, or an EP. What do you find yourself working on? Are they still full length? Are they EPs? Are you doing mostly singles or a little mix of everything?
It's about half and half. It's a bit, because I think that it's very, the notion of making a 10-ish song record is very, it's still really appealing to people from a personal, creative, artistic standpoint. Like it feels like a body of work that really says something. I don't know how relevant it is to make a full-length record considering the way music is consumed out there.
Right.
So it's very relevant from a personal satisfaction standpoint, but it also takes 10 times as long and costs 10 times as much, and
right.
Right. And so I think that what I encourage a lot of people to do is to record. Well, okay. Well, I was about to sidetrack, but to record, to finish one song at a time. Finish one song.
Right.
Maybe make a video. We'll definitely make a video. Promote it. Do your thing, and then come make another one.
Right.
And if you do that once a month, at the end of the year, you have a record.
You have a whole record. Yeah.
As far as the process goes, you don't really do it one at a time. If there's a band, like if you're putting musicians together, once you do all the setup in the studio, you're all set. You want to record as many rhythm tracks as possible. And most music these days is done in layers and editing and overdubs and all this kind of thing. It's very rarely is it just done all in one shot. So maybe you'll come in, organize your whole session and come in with your musicians, whether they're people that I help you choose, or if you have your own band, however it works,
Yeah.
set up and record as many songs as you can.
Yeah.
And then choose one to really focus on, or two to really focus on.
Right, right.
That way you can finish one, but you've got 4 or 5 more waiting to be finished.
Yeah, that obviously makes sense. And I know this could go on for hours when I'm going to ask you this next question, but if you could streamline it just a tad, your thoughts on downloads and Spotify and all this other stuff and what it's doing to musicians and all of that, if you would come in from your perspective as a recording engineer producer.
Well,
It's a tough answer. Yeah, I know.
Well, okay, so here's the bottom line is streaming is here and it's not going away.
Yep.
So any kicking and screaming and whining about how streaming has ruined the livelihood of musicians is moot. So what we have to do is figure out how to adapt streaming in such a way that it increases the livelihood of musicians.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful convenience to be able to go, oh, I want to hear X song, bing, 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 there it is. That's great. Who doesn't love that?
Me.
But, considering what the decimation that it's done to the income of music creators and the devaluation of music, that's not the fault of streaming. That's the fault of people.
Mm-hmm.
So, once again, people are the problem. As always.
Right.
It's kind of like there's nothing wrong with the internet. It's what people do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, the one thing that I find quite frustrating about the whole situation here regarding streaming is that the musicians and the songwriters, in fact, have an enormous amount of power that they're not using. I understand why they're not using it. It would be very difficult for them to use it because they would have to essentially unionize or work as a block. Like an individual musician has no power, mm-hmm. but 20 million musicians have a lot of power.
Right.
100% of the power, in fact. If somehow everyone would just decide to opt out of all of these services until they agreed to increase the amount of money or change the structure, the payment structure, and so on and so forth. Because I don't know that all of your listeners are aware of this, but deals are made with the big record labels where they get a higher percentage than the indie artists. Mm. So, like, a million streams by Ali Dineen, who you played at the top of the show, does not pay the same amount, pays much less than a million streams by Taylor Swift, for instance.
Right.
So it's stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff like that, and I don't want to go super long, but
right.
You don't, as a new artist, you don't have to allow your song to be streamed. So if everyone would just kind of band together and with a big kumbaya moment and say, we're not going to take it, the industry would change overnight.
It would have to.
And it would have to, and it would. Mm-hmm. And all of the CEOs of these big companies, of Spotify's and Pandora's and everything, they would still be very rich.
Yeah.
Just maybe not quite as obscenely rich as they are now. Mm-hmm. And musicians would be getting paid for them.
Yeah, imagine that. What a concept.
Yeah, that's kind of a pipe dream, because that would require the entire creative community to act in something resembling unison.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't have a lot of optimism that will happen, but I do think that somehow or other it has to settle down. and they have to figure out a way to get more money into the hands of musicians, or music will simply stop being made.
Right.
Or music will only be made by people who can afford to make it because they have money doing something else, meaning that they're probably not full-time musicians.
Right. It's a hobby thing. Yeah. So
and of course this is excluding the very small percentage of hugely successful artists. They're in a different world.
Right.
They're in a whole different world, and they're making money.
Yeah. Exactly. Now, we have a few more minutes because I really want to get your music out here as well. The caliber of the musicians that are here in the Hudson Valley and seem to be coming more and more into the Hudson Valley, and you're meeting so many of them. What are you feeling about the talent that's coming out right now?
It's fantastic, actually. I love it. There's young people who are really strong. There's a lot of people. Well, a lot of people have left the city. And particularly post-COVID, people have left the city just to have a better quality of life, and that's just increased the number of, you name it, pick an instrument, bass players.
Yeah.
I want to call a bass player. Well, there's a bunch to choose from now.
Right.
They're really, really, really good.
Right, within like 25 miles of where you are.
Yeah, who can drive to the studio and come do a session, and they're top-notch, great players, and so on and so forth. And as far as, and actually there's a lot of young musicians that are incredible too, which I love to see. Like without that, you don't have a scene. You really need young people coming into it.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful to see, actually. And I didn't expect that. When I moved up here, I figured, well, my business is New York City, and I just live up here, and I have to lure people to me, and that's still the case. But there's more and more here locally that's just happening to its own scene developing, and it's quite nice to see. I think that when the summer hits, and hopefully we come out of this COVID haze.
Yes.
That I think you'll see an explosion of live music that's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, I do too. I always ask, that's usually my ending question. What do you feel is going to happen to music once we can all go back out? And most people are very optimistic and saying, wow, yeah, it's going to be crazy, and everyone's going to want to go to the theater and to see live music and Broadway and everything, and I know I'm looking forward to it. And with the venues opening up slowly but surely, especially with the outdoor space, that'll be a nice way to start, just to start coming together again in an outdoor space before we are actually allowed to have, full capacity inside. So it's going to be good.
Well, I'm with you. I think that's the case, and I hope it's the case. Yes. And I hope we can do it safely.
Yes.
Keep your masks on, people.
Keep the masks on, double mask, and even if you're vaccinated. And absolutely. Let's be safe. The only way we're going to ever get rid of this is if we all take safety precautions. Otherwise, it's not going to go away. It's pretty simple.
I've been super careful I've been working straight through the whole pandemic, and I really carefully. I've got my rules for the studio. It's set up in a way that it can be done.
Yeah.
And in fact, no, it's not as nice as it was when you didn't have to follow this protocol, but we do.
Yeah.
And let's get out of it. Let's get this over with.
Yeah.
And
let's move on to the next chapter here. And, if we comply, we might be able to do it. So, so some of this music, and I mean, there's so much that you sent me. I'm definitely going to get some of it on air now. And just, I don't even know where to start with all of it, but, Duke McVinney, beautiful voice that we started the show with, Ali Deneen, powerful voice, Orin Oblivion. thank you for sending this, and I'm really looking forward to sharing some of these tracks with the airwaves. And what are you working on like now? Are you got some things in the fire? Or?
Yeah, I just I'm working with actually a local artist who's great, named Matthew O'Neill. Beautiful record that we're getting close to mixing, still recording.
Nice. That's the other thing I wanted to ask. You do the whole thing, right? You do the recording, you do the engineering, the mixing. You can make a complete record start to finish at Hidden Quarry.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely. That's mostly what I do. Although nowadays most people have some kind of recording set up at home, and will often come work with me, especially if they want to have a bunch of musicians assembled. But sometimes even not, just if they want to make sure it's sounding great,
Right.
take it home, edit, overdub, mess with it, live with it, and then come back later. That's happening a lot more these days.
All right.
And I think that's great.
Yeah, no, I think that's great too. That's very great. Oh, Danny, thank you. We could talk for hours and hours and hours. And what I want to do is just play some of your music and say thank you. I'm going to suggest listeners keep up with your amazing work. DannyBlume.com. You can also find Danny on social media, of course. And your work is exquisite. As I mentioned to you in the email yesterday, you are a true master of your craft. Your recordings are just so elegant, and they just...
You were very kind.
No, it's just true. It's true. It's just really great stuff. So I thank you, and I'm really thrilled to be sharing some of this music with the listeners here at LocalMotion. So what I'm going to...
Should I introduce some of these songs?
Yes, what I want you to do, because I love this one. It was just so good. Piggyback Rider.
Ah, okay, that's a good one. This is a Hudson Valley... legend.
Yep.
I guess.
Yeah.
Duke McVinney, I think he's just incredible. And this record, this song, I actually played the guitar on it, so it's kind of one of the reasons I picked it, because I'm kind of like, taking a super ego kind of moment here. And it also features other great local musicians. Manuel Quintana played the drums.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Oh man, I'm not going to go through the whole credits because I'm afraid I don't remember who played what bass on this.
Right.
It might. Colin Almquist usually plays the bass for Duke, but Duke might have played bass on this one. But anyway, this is so Duke. Duke is an incredible artist. He generally does the weirdest music you've ever heard in your life.
Yep.
But he made a country record, and this song is from his country record, and I love it.
It is so fun. It's such a fun song. Tell me about Dustin.
Oh, Dustin Luke. Yeah. In fact, I'm still working on a brand new Dustin Luke record, and this track is from that record. He's a New Orleans artist, and I've done a lot of stuff with him over the years. I think he's a fantastic songwriter and singer, and he's great. He tours, up until this last year, he toured around like he lived in a van. He was like nomad land kind of guy.
Great movie. I love that movie.
Travel all over the country and mostly do house concerts.
Wow.
He does really well with that.
Wow.
He would avoid clubs because, you don't really get paid to play in a club. You do a short set, and then you're done, and you scoot over, and then there's another band.
Yeah.
But if you do a house concert, it's a beautiful evening with a meal and people who care and are paying attention. And anyway,
and they're there to see you. Yeah.
No, Dustin's great, and this is from that. I'm also playing the slide guitar on that.
Oh, nice. And Kat Edmondson?
Kat Edmondson, she's also really great. And I hadn't known her. It was just a call out of the blue. Asked me if I could engineer. She called me and asked me if I could engineer a session with a one-day notice.
Wow.
and how that happened, I'm not exactly sure, but in fact, I could, so I did, and we did this at Dreamland. It was a fantastic place, fantastic studio here.
I got Jerry on in 2 weeks.
Oh, Jerry Murata is one of the gems of the world, but we have him here in the Hudson Valley.
Yep.
Anyway, so I went in and to do one day of recording, and it ended up turning into 5 days of recording and a mix.
Wow. Wow, nice.
At my place, and then that was just released.
Right.
And she's very organized and great, and has an real career, which also, her whole touring thing was cut short by COVID.
Yeah.
And she's been doing regular Zoom concerts. She's really, really talented.
Oh, great.
And so that was a joy for me to just kind of meet someone new. We hit it off well. And
it is, right? It's nice to get exposed to new music. I love that. I absolutely love that. And Soren's song, of course, featuring Rachel Yamagata, another local artist.
Yes. Soren and Rachel. Rachel's someone who I did a bunch of recording with recently as well. But she's a guest singer on this one.
Yeah. And
Soren's song is one of my. I just love him. He's just a great, incredible singer. He's one of these people who, when you hear him sing, if you hear him recorded, he plays piano and sings. That's his trip. And his lyrics are all very like socially conscious, spiritually conscious. Not in, and I don't mean that in like a kind of like happy preachy way.
Right.
I mean they're deep. Like there's I just think he's great. Mm-hmm. And I've done 2 full records with him, and hopefully we'll do more.
Wow.
And he's a guy who, when you hear him sing and play recorded, that is exactly what he sounds like. Like if you go,
I love that.
If you go and hear him live, that's what you're going to hear.
Yeah.
It's not.
That's not always the case.
Studio trickery.
Yeah, that's not always the case, because boy, you can do anything in the studio.
Yeah,
but
this is true of everyone who's actually all the people, the artists that I sent you. That's true of all of them.
Of all of
Kat
them.
too. She's an incredible singer. Allie, amazing.
Well, we're going to play some of this now because it's too good not to share.
Oh, we left out Oren.
Great. Oren Oblivion.
I got to plug Oren. Oren Oblivion.
Yes.
This guy, all I can say is Oren is one of the handful of most talented musicians I've ever worked with.
What does he play?
And I love this guy. He plays guitar, bass, keyboards.
Jeez.
He even played a little drums.
Okay.
And he showed up here. Okay, as soon as COVID descended upon us like a dark cloud, and everything was canceled, he was about to go on tour. He has a band called Elysian Fields, which have been together, who I've also worked with a bit. They had a whole European tour canceled.
Oh.
So Oren decided that he would quarantine in the apartment above the studio and make a solo record that
Perfect.
he's been wanting to make for years.
Wow.
So he showed up, and we recorded 15 songs from start to finish.
Oh, what a perfect place to do it, right? Because it's perfect.
Great. We spent a couple months. It was and we got tons of remote tracks, meaning we would like have people record at their home studios and send it, and so this is one of the songs from that record, which is going to be released soon, I hope. So a lot of this stuff is unreleased that I sent you.
Well, that is really nice, and I appreciate you sending that and letting me premiere this stuff. So it's very cool. So I'm gonna start off right now with Piggyback Rider by Duke McVinney, and then I'm going to squeeze others in here, and then I'll end the show before 6 o'clock. I'll throw a few more tracks in there as well, because too good not to show.
I talk too much. I should have listened to more music.
Danny, you never talk too much. I could talk to you for hours. It's always a pleasure talking with you, and yeah, you are wonderful. Keep doing what you're doing. Provide the world with more music. We need it, and I thank you for your time. I wish you continued success, and I really do hope to see you this summer up there in the Catskills somewhere.
Thank you so much, Rita. You're a boon to the world.
Oh, you're sweet. Thank you, Danny. I will talk with you soon, and we're going to play some of your music. All right. Hello. Thank you.
Hello. Whoops.
Yeah, it's okay. We're good, Danny. We're good. Ciao. All right, Mr. Danny Blume. Check out DannyBlume.com. You are tuned in to LocalMotion here on 91.3 WVKR, Independent Radio, Poughkeepsie, New York. It's 5:02 p.m. Wednesday. Let's take a listen, as promised, to new music, Duke McVinney. Let's take a listen, 91.3.
Better do what you say, don't say what you do. You've been holding that ticket so long you don't know where you're going to. Keep your ear to the track, keep your razor near the bar. Tuck your money in your hat when you're dealing in the back of the baggage car. You better stay away from the piggyback rider. Better stay away. Don't you see that you can't ride that train no more? When the whistles start to blow, you pass the bottle all around. Take a hit, take a card, take a swig, take a chance. Hell, you're heaven bound. They got you suckered in the game, took your tickets and your pride. Now they got you shoveling coal to feed the fire on the final ride. You better stay away from the piggyback rider. Better stay away. Don't you see that you can't ride that train no more? Come on. Start of the day, come the end of the line. I heard the motorman say if you pull the brake, he's gonna bust your head for heaven's sake. Roads will be flying on down the line. A first class pitcher best spilling their wine. Never make the station on time, better stay away from the piggyback rider. Better stay away. Don't you see that you can't ride that train on? You can ride that train.
I wanna be Johnny D. Walks into the bar. Miss 15 midnights. Walks into the bar. Her face is on the cover. Walks into the bar. A princess in the papa walks into the bar. Shaped in the moon, moon in the star. On a bicycle to the end of the world. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm down with Orleans, walks into the bar.
10,000 times before. I'm flopping on the floor like a fish that's been hauled in from a dying ocean. And as I strain my head to see, there's 10 million more like me, caught up in an unseen net, too vast to comprehend. Lord, am I to blame? Why could I not wait? Lord knows I'm ashamed, but I say the unbearable name. A symbol is the fag end of a burning branch. The other end's too hot to touch. That's why we worry it so much. And when we play capture the flag just captures us. The drummer falls, no one can beat the call that tells us to retreat. So much fear could have ever found me here, where you tried so hard to make a home for me. It didn't take, and as it spiraled into space, I completely lost my place. I said some things, but what I meant is we can't go through this again. Maybe I've lived this way too long. Maybe I've set things up all wrong. Maybe I've got too corrupt of a heart, too twisted up for a real love to start. Never get over this waste. Each time I picture your face, how I wish that we had been able to wait. When I said the unbearable name,
91.3 WVKR. That was Orin Oblivion. We heard The Unbearable Name. All these three tracks that we heard produced by Danny Blume at his recording studio, Hidden Quarry, up in Bearsville, New York. We also heard Dustin Luke, Walks into a Bar, and we heard Duke McVinney with Piggyback Rider. If anybody wants more information about this, you can listen to our interview. If you missed part of it, I'll be uploading it this evening. It'll be on YouTube as well as wherever you might get your streaming platforms, wherever you get your streams, it'll be on there as well under LocalMotion. And if you want more information about these artists, you can also visit Danny's website, DannyBlume.com, and that's BLUME, Danny, BLUME.com. Thank you, Danny, for your time. That was a lot of fun. We'll end the show with a few more of the tracks that he sent me as well. And right now we're going to get it going. We'll start it with these folks will be performing tomorrow as part of the live stream, the monthly live stream series from the Valley Hour. Let's take a listen right now to Stephen Clare, 91.3 WVKR.
I know you from Facebook We probably haven't met, I know you work at the casino. We got some mutual friends like Jeanette who lives in Reno. I met her at that party down in San Marino. She was drinking Pellegrino, says she's laying off the vino. The next thing that you know, there's some incriminating photo, like that selfie with your sister in Redondo, holding up a sign that says, take me downtown. Take it downtown, take it down. Take it downtown, take it all the way down. Take it downtown, take it down. Take it downtown. Take it. Now I wonder if you're real at all. It's hard to dissect a stranger's wall on the internet. Privacy settings can be so eluding. Probably better off and never even knowing. Let's take it downtown, take it down. Take it downtown, take it all the way down. Take it downtown, take it down. Take it downtown. Take it.
You're not the one I was given, you're the one I chose. The life I wanna be living, I know it's juxtaposed, but there's a lot of good folks that call me, wonder how I am. Miles and time zones between us, I hope they understand that you're my chosen family. You're my chosen family. It took a long time to admit it. Can't do it on my own, no. Had to let go